What is this dull piece of equipment that came from the original house on the family property in southern Missouri, which can be traced to around the Civil War? The hook ratchets back to its stopper, and it says patented February 5th, 1917. Even with the patent number, we have never been able to find its intended purpose. The closest I ever came was part of a wagon that would dump its load after overloading the ratchet, then would close back up to be reloaded. Any dull guesses on what it is and what it was used for? It's a catch-a-kick safety anti-kick device, which was an aftermarket safety accessory manufactured around the early 20th century for early automobiles. Early cars like the Ford Model T did not have electric starters and had to be started manually using a hand crank at the front of the vehicle. If the engine backfired during this process, the heavy iron crank handle would aggressively spin backward with a violent reaction known as an engine kick. This was incredibly dangerous and frequently caused severe fractures. A medical emergency so common at the time it was nicknamed a Ford fracture. The catch-a-kick was invented to solve this exact problem. The square clamp side attaches securely to the front crossbar of the car's frame, directly above or adjacent to the hand crank. When you pull the hand crank downward to start the car, the hinged hook moves freely out of the way, offering no hindrance to normal cranking. The moment the crank handle passes the downward stroke, internal tension or gravity springs the hook back into position. If a backfire occurs and the handle flies backward, the curved hook instantly catches and locks the crank handle, absorbing the violent force and protecting your arm. What is this unknown black metal kit with 6 pieces, screws, nuts, and wall anchors? I found this in storage inside a factory-sealed plain cardboard box, and there is no branding, label, part number, or identifying mark on the box or any of the pieces. 4 of the metal pieces are about 11 inches long and form 2 mirrored pairs. The box was sealed, so I believe this is the complete set. Does anyone recognize what this is or what it is used for? I had one of these many moons ago. It's a 1990s Lizard CD rack, and it appears you are missing the main rack piece. It mounts on the wall and looks like a lizard. When it's assembled, it measures approximately 50 inches tall and holds up to 45 CDs. This has been in my mom's basement since she moved in. I can see there's some sort of drum inside that has some brushes and spins when I turn the handle. Approximately 18 inches tall, 16 inches in diameter, and it's supported by a cast iron stand and framework with brass accents. I'm thinking it's a rock tumbler based on all of the powder. Any information would be greatly appreciated. It's a 19th century hand crank knife cleaner, commonly made in London by makers like George Kent Limited. I was just in Muckross House in Kerry, Ireland, and they had one on display in the servants' kitchen. These types of knife cleaners date back to the 1860s. Before stainless steel was invented, kitchen knives were made of plain carbon steel that rusted and stained easily. Turning the hand crank spins internal rollers or brushes lined with abrasive materials like emery powder and sisal to scrub the blades clean. Users inserted knife blades into the slots on the top edge, and the revolving drum polished both sides at once. One of my teachers, an old guy in the 1970s, said that you always had to use a silver fruit knife on fruit. A table knife, pre-stainless steel, would be tarnished and would stain the fruit due to the acid in the fruit. I found this while cleaning out my husband's grandparents' house in northeast Louisiana. My initial thought was something for laundry, but my daughter suggested something for cleaning cotton. It's all wood, even the crank and gears. What would something like this be used for? It's a 19th century biscuit break, used in the American South to pound and fold dense biscuit dough before the widespread availability of chemical leavening agents like baking powder. Before these chemical leaveners were widely available, people enjoyed a slightly different piece of pastry, the beaten biscuit. Made from just flour, lard, and milk, these biscuits were smaller, smoother, and denser than the biscuits traditionally enjoyed today. Their name comes from the fact that they were actually beaten. The dough was vigorously pounded and worked with wooden mallets, hammers, rolling pins, and even axe handles for 30 minutes to an hour. A process which introduced air into the dough and gave the biscuits a slight lift in the oven. Biscuit breaks like this were introduced to make that process easier. The dough was simply passed back and forth underneath the corrugated wooden roller by turning the crank handle. Beaten biscuits were a staple of antebellum Southern cuisine. Because the laborious beating process required significant time and kitchen labor, typically performed by enslaved cooks, serving them was a sign of wealth and social status. I found this small silver metal thing attached to a key ring. I'm assuming it's a key of some sort, but any idea what it could go to? It's two small silver parts that detach from each other, and it's engraved with initials, so it would have been important. My first assumption is to a briefcase. Any help or insight is much appreciated. It's a mid-century Foster's pull-apart key holder, and it's broken. It was designed to quickly separate car keys from house keys, so you can leave your car key with, say, a valet, and keep your house keys with you. Sorry to trouble you all, but I'm curious about what kind of cup this is. It was seen at a local town museum, and the guide had no info on it. The museum itself was in a late 1800s home, but there was no claim that this cup was from any specific era. It looks like a teacup, but it has an entirely enclosed section on the right in the photo. The main portion runs under that little separate section, so liquid would fill the entire bottom just a bit. My best guess is it's a teacup with an included biscuit or treat holder. But was that really a thing? Thank you for taking the time to look and provide an opinion. It's a Victorian porcelain mustache cup, a specialized teacup designed to keep a gentleman's facial hair dry and prevent hot liquids from melting his mustache wax. Large, heavily waxed and dyed mustaches were extremely fashionable for men during the 19th century. However, the steam and heat from drinking hot tea or coffee would melt the wax and cause the dye to run, leading to messy, drooping facial hair and stained tea. English potter Harvey Adams invented the mustache cup around 1860, and it quickly became an essential item for well-groomed gentlemen across Europe and America. The user drank through the small crescent-shaped opening while the ceramic shelf held the mustache securely out of the way of the liquid and steam. Who is this piggy bank representing? My girlfriend is about to buy it, and I don't have a clue. If anyone has any information on it, I appreciate it. It's a 1990s Brian Mulroney ceramic piggy bank, made in Canada by A.O. Pavlenko. It's a satirical piece of Canadiana political art, depicting Brian Mulroney, the 18th Prime Minister of Canada. The bank was released in 1990, during a period of intense public dissatisfaction with Mulroney's government. The administration had recently introduced the unpopular goods and services tax, while the country entered an economic recession, making the caricature of a politician swallowing taxpayer money a popular piece of political protest art and dark humor. Today, these pieces survive as niche collector items for vintage Canadian political memorabilia. What is this thing on my college desk? We can't figure out its purpose. The dial goes from 1 to 5, and one also just says turn with 2 arrows up and down. Please let us know if you have any idea what this thing is. Please tell us down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's make life fun.